Hello and welcome to the Gooners podcast. It's another happy pod, another win, and this holiday season may even bring two mortal enemies together, even if one of them has no friggin' idea who the other one is. It's the Gooners podcast, season 6, episode 55. And that's the end of the pod. That's all we have for you tonight. Thanks for joining. Oh man, it's a happy one. I should have kept the camera on a little bit longer before I started because, of course, the champagne boiled over and was all over my leg. And whenever I wet myself, it should be shown on video. But Mikey, good to see you again. It's been a while since you and I have podcasted together. Even longer since you did it without your mute button on.
I know. It's been a while, man. It's funny what a newborn does to your schedule. Really kind of just throws everything through the loop. So, yeah.
You're talking about you. I was like, shit, did I miss it?
Again? Yeah. Oh, no, this is after Ian. We already had another one, Mike. Remember, I'm 49 and counting.
Yeah, no, you're on pretty much one every
absolutely.
9 weeks at this point. Not 9 months. So does it? This is your second podcast in about 18 hours, but the last one didn't count because one of the guys was sleeping for 80% of the pod. Is that?
Yes, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, Sebi showed up. Looked like he was drugged potentially. I'm not 100% sure. Can't confirm that, but he was very groggy. At the very least, he had a lot of Benadryl. Is going to be my guess. And he was a little groggy, a little out of it, but.
Tonight we have two amped up guests. No one's going to be falling asleep on this podcast, although Jack probably hasn't slept that much recently. But it's good times at Arsenal. Twitter's been a fascinating place the last couple of days, kind of exploring how people handle a purple patch for once. But if you followed our show for a while, you know that we love breaking a certain thing. Mikey, do you know what we like breaking here at the Gooners podcast?
At the Gooners podcast, sir, we break ducks.
We do. So we have two duck-breaking guests tonight. Not just one, but two. Not even one and a half. We have two duck-breaking podcasters tonight with us. So first, joining us from Central London via St. Louis, Missouri, a place that I've spent much time in, via a pretty crazy last 48 hours or so. Welcome to the pod, Jack Robinson. It's good to have you, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we're going to get into kind of what your last 48 hours is like, the trigger for you having us, for us having you on the pod. I know this isn't the first podcast you've done, even though I tried to lock you down with an exclusive. I have seen that you've cheated on us. But now, when I went to check you out, like I told you, your name sounded familiar, and I saw that you were following us. So, I mean, what's your history? I mean, are you unfortunate enough to have actually listened to us in the past, or
I say fortunate to listen to you guys in the past, and fortunate to be on Arsenal Twitter for since the beginning, forever.
Yeah, the good old days. Well, the reason you're in London, and among others, the reason that we're going to chat tonight, we'll talk about in a few minutes. But we don't want to leave this guy out, fighting out of the bottom right corner. If you've read any Arsenal-related football media, followed game reports, press conferences, if you've opened your eyes in the last year or so as an Arsenal fan, you've heard the name. The best and fastest rising young journalist in the history of football, and I mean the history of football journalism. He's way, way ahead of this guy. Hold on, where is he?
I had a feeling you were going here. Yeah,
way,
there he is.
Yeah.
way ahead of this guy. Who now this guy could have been the fastest rising if he hadn't made the poor decision of sleeping on my couch, not once, but twice. So, Tom, we love you. Kaya, it's finally time for me to let you talk. 5 minutes into the podcast. Welcome to the Gooners Club.
Thank you very much for having me on. That's a hell of an intro. I mean, I'm hoping I won't be putting any of you guys to sleep tonight, but thank you. That's a very, very kind intro. I'm hoping I can live up to that.
Well, if we put you to sleep, you know that I just make a couch available to any Football.London journalist. I mean, all of the famous ones, Lath, Charles Watt, Wheatley. I mean, they've all slept on my couch on the way up. So
Sounds like a rite of passage.
It is a rite of passage, and I will probably be sued by everyone but Tom for saying things that aren't true.
Does Tom pose like that, or do you always just happen to catch him like this?
He actually, I mean, and Kaya, you see him. I've known him longer than you probably, but you've seen him more frequently than me. He just walks around like that, and so that when you take a picture, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen him lying in bed, so I wouldn't be able to say for certain about that. But
we can confirm that.
Yeah, but listen, those poses look pretty good.
I mean, he's very picturesque. So, thank you for breaking your Gooners pod duct, and we're going to hold off for a bit because we want to get into what makes our podcast a little different than a lot of them is that we try to spend less time actually digesting than breaking down the game and get to know our guests a little bit more, the background, the stories, because my thing about the Gooner lifestyle is it's the people that make the club, not the club that makes the club and the results that make the club by itself. So anyway, Jack, speaking of sleeping and beds and stuff, have you slept in the last 3 days?
Yeah, we slept okay last night. Yes. Yeah,
all right,
I'll say that. Yeah.
So had we had you on last night, you would have been like Mike's friend Seppi.
Yes.
All right. So I could obviously start the story out, but every once in a while you hear a story about kind of a hard luck situation, whether it's a fan who's come over from the States and the game's snowed out, or something going on with COVID, or the plane breaks down and you miss a connection. And, these things happen when you have a worldwide fan base, even just, locally in England, you'll have situations where people just, their dreams are about to come true and something gets in the way, but you'll tell the story better than I can. So to start us off 6 months ago, when, the club is getting ready to come to London, and maybe Kaya can give some inside information about, because I remember this news got out through the press before it got out to supporters clubs. But start us off with the famous Florida Cup gate of August 2021.
Yeah, so that's where it did start. It started back in July, Florida. So me, my wife, and my brother actually bought tickets to go to the Orlando game. All excited for it, had everything planned. Disney World, Universal, obviously the game. And I think it was I'm going to say 2 days before we left. 2 days before we took flight, they ended up canceling the game. We were too far ahead to back out of that trip to go forward. So we went forward. We went to Universal, went to Disney World, missed out on the reason we went. After we got home, decided 10-year anniversary is coming up. We talked about it. We've been to London before, but never for a game. So we decided to go ahead and book it. I would say it was about 5 months out from when we booked it. We had everything scheduled, everything laid out. Everything was good. I checked Twitter and the restrictions, and obviously everything was changing day to day. So it was making me sick to my stomach a little bit. But Sunday came, and no more restrictions. The game was still going on. Got to the airport, was taking off. Everything was looking glorious. I was following the game as the Norwich game was going on as well on my phone. They won. So I was like, okay, Arsenal fully healthy. Doesn't look like any COVID minus the 4 that they announced. Wolves didn't announce anything as far as I was aware. And they seemed to be healthy. Then I get on the plane. We're about to take off from DC. And as soon as we start taking off, I'm looking at my phone, scrolling through it, and we get the message. I think I saw Evan was the account. I don't know it fully, but he's the one who tweeted possibly it being postponed. So I'm clicking the button as fast as I can to see what's going on. And I saw post after post after post from either The Athletic or everyone saying it's postponed. So obviously,
you're sitting on the plane. The plane hasn't taken off yet, but you're sitting on the plane.
Oh no, it took off. It was going, and it wasn't in the air yet. So I still had the DC Wi-Fi, so everything was fine as I'm going off. And it took off, and I still had the Wi-Fi, and then obviously I lost the Wi-Fi, but I knew the game was postponed, so I knew it. So I'm sitting there going from DC to London. I'm a 34-year-old baby. Let's go with that. So I'm in tears. I am. And I'm a handful to be with. I'm like that. So obviously my wife's keeping her distance. I had my headphones in the entire time, pretty much crying.
Does that make the trip go faster? Because it's a long trip over there. I mean, like, I should try this next time. Like,
no.
Should I cry on the way over? Or does it makes it longer?
No, made it longer.
So let me switch over to Kaya real quick.
Did you get any free booze?
Well, yeah, we got to find out like if anyone on the plane knew or had any kind of sympathy or empathy for what you were going through, or if they just
anyone
were annoyed by you. But Kaya, when did you first find out about the postponement? Was that because I've heard that the club, like Arsenal may have actually known before the Norwich game, which may have had something to do with the way that they selected the starting 11.
That's not what I'm aware of. I mean, we did the press conference ahead of the Wolves game, straight after the Norwich game. So I think as far as they knew, it was going ahead. And Mikel Arteta and the communication team at Arsenal were very keen to get that press conference done straight after the Wolves game, because obviously that less than 2-day turnaround means that the time we do the pre-match press conference ahead of Wolves wasn't really there. So no, as far as I know, it was going ahead. And sort of as I left Carrow Road, because I was at Norwich for the Boxing Day game, as I left Carrow Road, sort of we were joking in the sort of press room, see you in less than 48 hours, guys. And then on my drive back down, I saw a message flash up on my phone, obviously like a bunch of tweets. And then I got a text from Chris Wheatley, who's my colleague at Football.London, for those of you who don't know. And he just told me that the game had been cancelled. And then as I sort of called him to check what was going on, he told me. And then sort of as we were on the phone, Arsenal confirmed it. So I don't think they really had too much of an inclination that it was going to be cancelled until sort of after the Norwich game, to be honest, because everything was planned to go ahead as scheduled. And I feel like if maybe they'd known ahead of the game, then maybe they probably wouldn't have done the post-match Wolves press conference, or maybe they would have worked something else out. I don't know. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, Mikey, had you heard that there may have been some advance? I don't remember where I heard that from. Obviously not a reliable source, but there were some rumors going out on the deep, dark web that we might have had something of a heads up, which is why we didn't rotate as much, or whatever you want to say. So not only was Chris Wheatley texting you, Kaya, but he was also looking at Twitter, because Jack, pick up on the story, because now you're on the plane crying.
Yes.
Now crying like a baby, but with alcohol, right?
Sober.
No. Sober.
That's the worst type of sad.
Not even a water. Couldn't even drink. Didn't even want anything. Was too upset.
That's something.
Yeah, I know.
I don't even know.
To keep going, so we got off the plane. Didn't have a long layover. It was like 45 minutes, an hour, not even. So we're getting on the plane to London, like getting into our seats, getting all situated, and I received a message from Chris. I thought it was also weird. He followed me back, so I was all excited about that, first off. So that made my day. Then I saw his message, and it was like, "Hey, Jack."
Would that have been enough? I mean, like if that was it, like out of this whole thing, I got Chris Wheatley to follow me. Would that? I mean, Kaya had to enter journalism.
I would have been pretty happy.
As a career to get Chris to follow him.
If nothing else happened, if he just followed me back and that was the end of it, I came to London. There was still no game.
You're like slightly ahead of the game in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel you. But it got better. It got better.
Yeah, Chris, he messaged me on Twitter. He told me he saw my post. He let me know that he was incredibly sorry. He wanted to know how long I was staying in London. I let him know right now, as of that time, I was only staying till Thursday. And he was like, okay, I'm going to have someone message you really quick on Instagram. Give me a second. And I said, okay. So obviously I'm going through my head what could be going on. I'm thinking
it's going to be Tom Canton.
He's going to be someone that's going to be like, hey, I'm really sorry. We'll send you something in the mail from Arsenal, something like that. Or, I mean, to be honest, I didn't know what to think. And then out of the blue is Granit Xhaka. And I
think your mic bottomed out a little bit during that. So could you just say it again?
Yeah. Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Out of the blue, it was Granit.
So Granit's back on Instagram, because I mean, if I were him, I wouldn't have gone on Instagram anymore. But
yeah, I saw a message from Granit Xhaka. To be honest, I've read it like a million times. I'm still in disbelief. It's extremely heartfelt, and he wanted to say how sorry he was. He saw the post via Twitter. He wanted to reach out to me and my wife, congratulate us on our 10-year anniversary. Again, apologize for the inconvenience, show his support for our support of the club, and wanted to know if I would like to be a fan or come to the game with my wife as a fan of his. And to be honest, I really didn't know how to react. I mean, first off, we weren't staying till Sunday or Saturday. As of now, we didn't extend our stay at the hotel as of now, but I couldn't say no. I mean, there was no way I was saying no to this. So I said yes, and we made it work. So
you didn't respond like, nah, it's all right. We're good.
Yeah, no.
I'm
you
good.
Don't do that.
At any point in time, Jack, did you think it was like a troll at all? Because like I just.
The only reason I didn't is I already followed Granit and his blue tick, and any other thing I would have think. I don't know, but no, it's hard to believe, but I did believe.
So Kaya, I mean, did Chris actually do this, or was this you and Chris is just taking credit as a more senior writer on the staff? But I mean, did you know anything about this for real though? I mean, like did he say much about it? Because I've been in communication with Chris to try to learn more about the story as well, and he's pretty much just like, as soon as I saw that and it was starting to get viral a little bit, I reached out to Granit, and Granit's a great, a solid guy, and I knew he would help out. But I mean, is it just he just dialed him up on his phone, or did you know anything about this effort?
Yeah, so I got back from the drive to Norwich, and I was sort of lying on my sofa, procrastinating, having to write my piece for the morning by just watching TV. And then Chris sent me a text with the story, because I hadn't, lying exactly like that on the sofa, with that exact pose. It's amazing I managed to unlock my phone with my hands in the air like that, but I did it somehow. And yeah, Chris sent me a text being like, have you seen this story? And I hadn't seen it, and it was really sad. And Chris just said, look, I'm going to try and get in touch with Granit about seeing if I can get this guy a ticket. I said, yeah, you should do that. And as much as I'd like to take credit for it and say that, that was because of me it happened, it's not at all. I mean, it's a really nice gesture from Chris, and to go that extra mile and to like actually reach out to Granit. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would have sent sort of messages, condolences, and sort of, I'm so sorry this has happened, but sort of go the extra mile and sort of use the position he's in to try and, solve the problem that come up from the Wolves game being cancelled. Because like, there's nothing anyone could have done about it. It's in no way anyone's fault really, but to turn such a negative into a positive situation is
Well, it's the FA's fault, but it's knowing that we have access to.
True.
I still blame Wolves. So.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't. We're undefeated against Wolves in games that you were supposed to be at.
100%.
Yeah, so you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But I mean, did the club help with any of the arrangements of extending your stay, or was that? No. I mean, because an extra few days in London is never a bad thing.
They don't need to do anything. The message from Granit was far enough. That's way too generous, to be honest. That I would never ask for anything.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a classy club. It's not the only club that does stuff like this, and sometimes it really is down to the player, sometimes it is to the club, but we've seen countless situations of the club reaching out to people who have had bad fortune, even when it's not the club itself. We've seen examples like with our friend Johnny Smythe, who I met because of a post about his son's friend who had lost his mom to cancer back in July. A tweet I actually read on my way down to Florida for the Orlando visit. And, the fan base absolutely rallied around him. It's hit or miss because, sometimes the right people pick up on these things, push it out there through their platforms, and sometimes things slip through the cracks. I mean, that's the nature of life. But when something, resonates, when someone's coming a long way or coming through hardship or planning from a long period of time, and it really is a great story, and I love to see that the club did that. Now,
Mike, I agree. I mean, in Arsenal Twitter, I mean, I can't say enough. No matter how toxic they are day to day, because they are. If someone didn't retweet my tweet,
some of them,
and get it to Chris,
some of them are.
Some of them. I mean, I thank everyone for it. I mean, that's the whole reason it was seen by Chris, and then Chris to Granit, and then God love him, Granit to me. So
and you know what? I don't want to make too big of a deal of this, other than like to create an entire podcast where we talk about it. But
he's your favorite player, Mike. By all means.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. But the game itself, you now seeing a game when you weren't going to see a game. I mean, I know that this isn't your first time to London or anything like that, but that will fade. That's not the greatest part of this, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, seeing an Arsenal game in person, once you've had the opportunity to do that, it's it's exciting. But there's the before, the after, just the way it happened, the connection with the team, where the feeling of value and the whole experience, which is so unique, I think is what'll stick with you for years and years. I mean, there may be a point where you don't even remember, and you'll probably not want to remember what the score is going to be on Saturday. But the way it came to be is the special part of it. And you're right about Arsenal Twitter. I look at Arsenal Twitter as a way that I've met tons of people like Mikey, like Kaya, like Tom, like you, like so many different people. A way that has come together to support our charity, Gooners versus Cancer. There's a segment of Twitter that is about fighting and arguing and trying to batter each other over the supposedly the team that you both love. But, people need to expand their horizons and soak in stuff like this. So, all right. So let's get to what Bulgarian Gooners talking about, because
when he invited you to the City game, did you say, can I politely request another game like Watford versus City?
Was there ever a decision to press your luck and be like?
Did he actually say, do you want to come to the game? Or was the question like, do you like pain? And then you just assume it was the City game. Okay, I'll stop, Mike. Go ahead.
No, he asked.
All right, so Drago in the chat was talking about my history with Granit Xhaka has been a bit spotty, but I think I think we're going to turn the corner. Kaya, one of the reasons we love having journalists on our podcast so much. First of all, when I was in high school, I was an aspiring journalist. This is from my high school yearbook. One of the most profound things I've ever said. And then after this printed in the yearbook, I promptly ate myself 3 times and became the size that I am now. But my daughter, also 20 years old, University of Missouri, aspiring journalism student. So So, journalism is kind of in the family, and it's something that we both enjoy. And I think it's a career where you can watch somebody really enter at a level and work hard and do exactly what they want to do. I mean, you're an Arsenal fan since you're 9, right?
Yeah, you're younger, since I was born. Yeah.
So you've been going to games. You've been going to games since you were 9. Lifelong Arsenal fan, and now here you are covering the team, going to press conferences, covering the game at Carroll Road and going around the country and possibly around the world when they get back to going on tour. How did you get from point A to point B?
It's obviously an amazing job, and I absolutely love what I do. And it's nice to turn something that I probably would be doing anyway, just in terms of watching games and sort of being on Arsenal Twitter, absorbing everything about the club that's possible, and turn it into something where I can call it a living, which is unbelievable. Like I said, I started following Arsenal when I was really young. My dad sort of got me a bit interested in football, and then I remember first being really interested in football in Euro 2004. I watched England, the team with Wayne Rooney in it, and they got to the quarterfinals, and just sort of remember crying after that, and sort of England losing on penalties, which happens quite a lot, and I've cried many times since then. And my first Arsenal game that I can really remember was the 2005 FA Cup final. People have told me it was a crap game. My dad's told me it was a rubbish game hundreds of times since, but I was able to, it's enough to get me hooked. And then I joined at just the right time, because after that it was the trophy drought until 2014. So I got right time. I
talked to so many people, and I just picture my friends staring at me when I say, because I say this almost every time, but when I'm speaking to somebody new who doesn't know me, my Arsenal career, if you want to call it that, started in the late 80s when I lived in London as a teenager. But once I moved back, there was about a 15-year time frame where between technology, lack of internet, college, getting married, having kids, that sort of thing, it just wasn't, my mind wasn't on Arsenal. And that was the period from about 1991 to 2006. So I too kind of rejoined the fan club again.
It's your fault.
Yes, exactly. I should have just stayed away, but yeah. So you've embraced the club during probably the one of the tougher 15-year spells that we've had. Not the toughest, but and so at what point do you say I'm going to going to school for a journalism career? How do you end up at Football.London?
So I did at the end of university, I decided to do a master's course in journalism, and then from there I went on, got loads of experience, as much experience as I could, working for websites like 90min.com. I did unpaid work at TalkSport, loads of unpaid stuff, just as many jobs as I could to try and meet as many people as I could to get my foot in the door. All the while, me and my dad were going to Arsenal games every week, and my uncle Jeff as well would take us. It would be the three of us. He's unfortunately passed away since, but it'd be the three of us going to games, and just trying to get as much experience as I could. I was working 4 or 5 different jobs to try and make ends meet, just because when you're starting out in journalism, it's pretty tough. You don't really get that much paid experience early doors. You sort of have to do the unpaid stuff. So I was doing all sorts. I was working as a swimming teacher. I was doing everything I could to try and sustain this career. And when the pandemic came along, those opportunities sort of dried up, but I kept going with it, and I kept writing Arsenal stuff. And then I started writing for an amazing fan site called Gooners Town, which, if any of you haven't read, I'd recommend definitely giving it a read.
That's Dave Seeger's website?
Yeah, Dave Seeger's website.
And Mike McDonald writes for them as well.
Mike's there, and plenty of others so many great Arsenal writers on there, and met some cool people through that, and then sort of felt confident enough to apply for the Football.London position when it came up. And luckily I was able to get in. I submitted a video with my piece, sort of analysing why I think Arsenal should have got rid of Kolasinac on deadline day last year, and that was enough to get me in. And it's been sort of a year and a bit has passed since then, but it's been an incredible experience. I mean, getting to go to games during lockdown was weird, but still really good fun. And now fans are back in the stadium and just interacting with people, and like you said, going to press conferences, all that kind of stuff. I feel like I want to try and say something funny about it, but it's just positive. It's like it's only
the question I would ask is this, and I've always, since we started podcasting essentially for fun as a hobby. I mean, we have 5 people that kind of rotate and come in and out of hosting the podcast, and we still can't get our act together to schedule a podcast on a regular basis because it's not something we're doing for a living. It's a hobby. We just try to have fun with it. But there is where am I going with that? What was my point going to be? Mike, what was my point? You got to pick me up here.
The point is he can't have a solid schedule because I keep on having kids.
No,
I'm trying to vent here for.
I completely lost my train of thought about what I was going to say, but it is a lot of hard work when you put in the regular, when the podcasts that do the regular work that that churn out content daily, and that's why someone like Tom and someone like yourself have really risen through the ranks and are now in a position where where they can truly be recognized and be able to be part. I know what I was going to ask you. When it becomes your work, it's a dream come true, but does it change the way you consume your passion? And what I mean by that is you see people who, and this is exactly what I was meaning to say, was you see people who kind of go into podcasting and get very, very successful at it. It's almost because they kind of chose a persona. They have a particular attitude that's known about them. They're either very critical or they're very, very positive, or they, this or that, or they have particular preconceived notions. And it's almost like they know what works and what doesn't work. And you could kind of subconsciously get pulled into having your gut reactions tailored towards what works, what sells, what gets clicks and so on, rather than particularly how you feel about that. So an honest question, and there's no right or wrong answer to this, but is there any downside to writing about the club and covering the club from the inside that you love? Does it take away any of the mysticism or change the way you consume the product at all?
Honestly, I mean, so the downsides are the amount you have to work. You do long days a lot of the time, 10, 12-hour days, relatively common, and sort of overtime is an expected part of the job, which is fine because I think sort of, especially when you're at this stage and you're working your way up, and I mean, you're very kind in your description. I don't really feel like I've made it anywhere yet, so I'm still going a long way. It's a long way to go till I get to where I feel like I want to go. But that's for me is the only downside, because I am still a fan, and I try to be measured in my opinion so that I can give good analysis. And sometimes the post-match pieces are a little bit more emotional than if I've had a day to sort of cool off. But generally, no. So my experience is a little different because I didn't start going to games straight away after I started covering the club. I was still at home because it was in the middle of lockdown. So I was still shouting at my screen, swearing, sort of saying things that I probably shouldn't be broadcasting at all about the team during their performances. And my housemates would always sort of be able to tell what the Arsenal score was. None of them are that interested in football. When I come downstairs at the end of the work, they'd be able to tell what the score was just by hearing from my room. So,
or reading it on your face. Like your face was basically CFAX after the game. Where they could just tell what the score was. So, exactly. So I want to ask you for your opinions on the last, because you've been in and around the club for a year. You've seen at least one change in captaincy. You've obviously been close to the club for all of our recent, for the roller coaster of Granit Xhaka. And Jack, this is how we're going to work you back in as well. Here's my one. We've played this on the pod before, but here's my one experience with a press conference. This was in Los Angeles, California in 2019 when my co-host Andy and I were credentialed media, along with a few others at the time, covering the Arsenal tour. And have you ever made a mistake during a press conference that was absolutely just mortifyingly embarrassing? Or has that not happened to you yet?
I don't know. Not that anyone seems to have noticed, but I feel like I have made mistakes.
Okay, well, I made the cardinal one, which is the phone alarm going off on the podium, and just, I saw everyone putting their phones up on the podium too. So I'm, doing what the people did, not remembering that I had a reminder to eat a protein bar or eat soup, one of my diet soups or something like that was getting ready to go off. So it's a little hard to hear, but here's my moment, and here's where the anti-love affair between Granit Xhaka and myself started. If you just take a look at the look on his face, it's very subtle, but he wanted to go.
Granit, I just wonder whether I could ask you just a little bit about leadership and captaincy. Obviously, Lauren's not here at the moment. It felt as if last season you really took on a lot of responsibility as a leader within the team. Did you enjoy that? And I guess, if it comes to it, would you welcome the opportunity to wear the armband either on a long-term or a short-term basis?
Yeah, it's not my first time. I was a captain here. I was before in Germany and the national team as well.
It's subtle, but and what's not subtle is my bald spot at that point, which is why I just got rid of it. But yeah, so I felt his glare that day, and I said, give me a break. I was sweating profusely after that. I had to leave the room. It was awful. So you've not had a mistake like that yet.
No, no.
I like it yet.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, that's something to look forward to. But weirdly, it's all my conferences have been over Zoom still because of the way the world's been for the past year. So I was supposed to go to one in person, and then I got a message the day before saying it had been cancelled or moved on to Zoom. So I've not had any sort of leaving my phone on the table instance yet. But that's something to look forward to.
Hey, if you Google is it Jeffrey Toobin or Jeremy Toobin Zoom, you can see that you can have embarrassing press conference moments on Zoom as well. But let's hope that doesn't happen to you. So, all right, so that was the first Granit Xhaka thing. Then and we've argued about this over and over on the pod. Granit Xhaka has been a lightning rod in our team, one way or the other. You've got people who love him. You got people who don't ever want to see him again. I have been pretty outspoken on never, ever criticizing the guy's play because I'm not qualified to do so. But to say, I haven't been a fan of, I certainly wasn't a fan of the Crystal Palace situation. Even though I understood what had him rankled, I think he took it out in a completely wrong way. And I don't like that every time he comes back from one of his self-imposed banishments due to red card or otherwise, does one thing good and then starts clapping back at the fans. I feel like it's Granit versus the fans a lot. Now, I have to say, between Jack, what's happened with you, between some things I've been told by others that I'm close to who have gotten to know Granit Xhaka a little bit, and between the amazing article written by Amy Lawrence this morning, life's too short to have these kinds of bitternesses especially towards people who have no clue who you are. But Jack, I mean, should I put this away and just get on the Granit Xhaka train, or at least just get back on the fence again? Were you a fan of his before this? I was a
fan of his before. I was. I'll be honest. I have a couple Xhaka jerseys at home.
I do too, but it was like the old 29 jersey when we first signed him, and I was all excited.
29 and 34. Yeah, I do have a 29 as well. So. Yeah, I was a Xhaka fan before this, so it made it even more special.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. It would have been weird if something like that happened to me, and then and then there's all this footage of me saying stuff. Like nothing abusive, but just like, look, I'm sorry, I don't like the guy.
Before he DM'd you, he looked at your timeline. Imagine that.
Yeah, that phone call probably would not have happened. But I think it's time to just bury the hatchet. I've seen in the comments in the chat that a lot of people have basically said, you know what, I'm over the Granit Xhaka stuff, and who else do we have in here? But Kaya, obviously you cover the club. Have you gotten to know him? Do you have his number in your Rolodex like Chris Wheatley does? I mean, what's been your experience covering Granit Xhaka the person?
Unfortunately, no. I'd love to get close to him at some point, but not yet. I think, as we know, Chris has got a good relationship with him, but we've not had too much interactions. The one time I remember, and it's actually a time where he really did turn me around, actually, because I was someone who wasn't too dissimilar in my views on him to you, Mike. I thought at times the way he reacted to situations was a little petulant, and as someone who was sort of over the age of 25 and what you consider more of the experienced members in the Arsenal squad, I felt like he maybe needed to act sort of, at least when he was presenting an external image, with a bit more composure. But I mean, it's easy to say that when you're not the one in the middle of a Emirates Stadium with 60,000 people booing and shouting and swearing at you. But he had a press conference before one of the Europa League games. I can't remember which one it was, but he was talking about the abuse he's received on social media, how he deals with that, how trolls on social media have started attacking his family and his daughters and his unborn daughter at the time. And it does make you think, and it's very easy to forget because we're so detached from footballers. But I mean, maybe it's cliche, but they are people too. And I think to sort of judge someone like that, who, like we say, we don't really know as sort of being either a terrible person or an awful person, I guess that's just sort of the nature of fandom. But yeah, I think my interactions with him, as minimal as they've been, have been pretty positive, and he's come across as a good guy, and he's definitely someone who's respected in the dressing room. And whenever you hear players, or the young players in particular, talking about the leaders, they tend to mention Lacazette, they tend to mention Rob Holding, they tend to mention Granit Xhaka, and there's a reason for that. And I guess he's the right kind of.
They should form a team, like a leadership type team of those.
Something like that, yeah, something like that would be great.
Yeah, I think I
vote somebody in for captaincy.
I'm going to call Mikel over that.
Can I just add a different perspective, because I do see the comments that are coming in. I'm reading them, and is it okay to say Granit Xhaka is an outstanding leader in the locker room? He's a great human being, but also you don't rate him as a footballer? Like, because I feel like it turns into it's one or the other. And like, look, he is. I've often said these statements. He is probably one of the best, or he is the best midfielder that we've had for a few years now, and that's including with Partey. I've often said he is a leader in our locker room. I often said he's admired. I also have often said that when he gets the ball and stumbles upon it for 4 or 5 seconds and somebody picks it away and he makes a boneheaded mistake, it annoys the holy hell out of me. So just to give voice to the people in the chat, not necessarily trying to bash the man here, but I do think that we get caught up in there's social media, which is like super toxic, right? And they don't know, they can't say I don't rate a footballer or this is a bad pass without inserting because he's a piece of crap. And that's just like a horrible part of social media, right? And, we read the article from Athletic from Amy Lawrence, and she mentioned that, he has people coming up to him in the street, which is horrible, of course. But I do believe that there can be an in-between, if you will, Mike. Like, I know that you would rather not pass judgment on his footballing ability, and I understand why you're saying about that, but I admire the man as a leader, and I truly do understand what he brings to the club. But if you ask me, hey, Mike, would you like to upgrade on him on the summer? I would also say yes to you.
Well, yeah,
so
I mean,
just throwing that out for the chat, because I'm seeing a few comments, that they're not completely sold. But so yeah,
let's highlight this, because it's about 50-50. But I will say one of the things that really struck me out of that Amy Lawrence article today was that his introspection on the things about his play that people generally have a problem with, his temper, his rashness. It isn't something he's completely unaware of. And part of the thing that I haven't liked about him over the last couple of years has always been that he just had to clap back about things. It's the this, and even during the Euros when he was playing for Switzerland, he had a great tournament. Mm-hmm. But going into the camera, like it's always just me against my haters. And I, there are some people on YouTube that are constantly talking about their haters because they need to, promote the fact that they're the underdog in this, oppressed victimization thing. And that's what I haven't liked about him. But, again, he's, what is he, 15 years younger than I am. I'm judging 27-year-olds like they should be fully actualized individuals. And it's thank you. It's always kind of ridiculous when you judge people's personalities and don't know them. You're really judging them on the window that you've seen. And the more that I see and hear about it, I think the more I tend to at least get into the neutral category and say, you know what, we clearly need him. I would never say he's not a leader on this team, because he clearly is. And if I don't like some of the things he's done, maybe I need to change it to that instead of I don't like him, as a person or personality wise. Drago thinks that there's only 59,999 more people that have to be invited to a home game to forgive him. So Jack, you've started something here.
Bit to go.
BX Gunner says Xhaka has come good for me. I'm over the witch hunt. He hustles out there and made the great gesture. I think there's a lot of merit to that. Alyssa from Detroit is in the chat. Knowing Xhaka did that for someone who experienced the same thing in Florida as we did is all that matters. I was able to visit with Alyssa and Ryan in Florida, even though the team didn't come. So it's Glenn's in the chat. What did Glenn say?
This wait, right here.
Yeah.
This one I saved this one because I thought it was tongue-in-cheek, kind of funny. So what has Xhaka done to turn everyone around? My wife gives a lot to charity. She's very nice to everyone. Maybe she could play in the midfield for AFC. So here's a man that clearly, he doesn't rate him as a footballer. Understands that he is a nice person, but nice person doesn't qualify him to be an Arsenal midfielder. So there's always look, it's in the article, right? And I'm referring to this article, and I'm hoping a lot of people got the chance to read it. But it's a tale of two takes, right? Every dime, every coin has two sides to it, and it really is truly amazing how incredibly admired he is within the professional level. Like there's no two ways about it. Every manager he has picked him. He's been respected and loved. And when he was a Mönchengladbach, he's Arsenal, Switzerland.
The only people that have ever said anything negative about him from a professional standpoint are referees.
That is true. That piece that was a horrible piece for the whole. I don't understand how. Okay, there's fans and then there's referees. Referees are supposed to, no matter what, keep their bias aside, if you will. The fact that it's been revealed that a referee gives him a red card and looks at his teammate and says, well, he's hot-headed sometimes. Absolutely not. That is absolutely ridiculous. And he alluded to that in his interview, where it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, look, if that was Granit Xhaka, like what fan have not tweeted that when we've seen Harry Kane undercut somebody, or we've seen multiple other fouls, and we're like, that was Granit Xhaka. And it's sad because it's true. I mean, because we've seen fouls like far less excessive than the ones that we've seen Granit Xhaka get red cards for. So I think Mikey, I could be wrong. If Kaya, Jack, if you guys could remember, I think there was a few seasons ago versus Swansea. He was he intentionally did a professional foul and took down the last man, and he got a red card, and he came out and I immediately, when I saw that foul, right on, boy, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do the professional foul and take your yellow. He got a red card. Yeah. And then after that, the FA was like, well, it's a new rule. We told people if you take down the last player, it's going to be a red card. And then, of course, we saw it multiple times throughout the league, and nobody got a red card. It's infuriating.
Are you gonna break the undercover PGMOL? Like, are you gonna finally get to the bottom?
The Granit Xhaka conspiracy.
Not just the Granit Xhaka conspiracy, the Arsenal conspiracy within the PGMO. I will hire you to whatever job. I act like I have some sort of influence in that situation.
Meaning he'll give you a spot on the podcast.
I will do whatever. If someone could just expose the underbelly with fact-based reporting and stuff, not just what we do.
Well, that would be great. I remember the Swansea game, and I remember in the same season there was a Burnley game, I think, where Xhaka got a red card and Alexis scored with that 97.
It was his first season, I think.
Yeah, it was his first season. He got sent off twice, and he came to the club with this reputation of sort of being a bit of a hothead. He likes to tackle. He's been sent off a few times, and that's been proved to be true. But I think even this season, if you look at the red card he got at Manchester City, it wasn't a good tackle, but you see tackles like that go in every week that don't get red cards. And
that's the thing. If that's a red, there's 10 other yellows that should have been red. Yeah. If it's not a red, then it should be red.
They're pulling players back and those cynical fouls. I mean, if Manchester City were punished like that, then they wouldn't be able to put out a team every week because they're masters of the tactical foul. And it's at times can be quite a smart way of stopping opposition counterattacks. And listen, Xhaka is not the most mobile of guys. So if he's being run away from by a quick winger, then it makes sense for him to bring him down. But yeah, having said that, then at the same time, he goes and puts in a tackle like he did against Leeds and gets away with it. So maybe it swings and roundabouts. I don't know, but I agree that sort of the what would Granit Xhaka do index that I think Andrew spoke about in the Arsenal is just like it's definitely a thing. And
and the
if I
greatest
get a chance to speak to a referee, I'll definitely ask him about it for you.
The greatest tweet during that Leeds game was James, Andrew's buddy James McNicholas, who said if Granit Xhaka had made that tackle that Granit Xhaka just made, he would have been sent off immediately. That absolutely just cracked me up in the pub. So here's what we're going to do. We've got about 10 minutes left. Are you guys both okay for another 10?
Yeah.
If you're in the chat, you have any questions for Kaya, if you have any questions for Jack about his experience, now's the time to set it up. We'll have a really quick, just general review of your thoughts on the Norwich game, but I want to take just 2 minutes to quickly talk about it because it is picking up steam. We're now about 13% of the way sold on our 500 entries for the single, I might be biased, but the single best piece of Arsenal memorabilia in the world today. And it's offered by Gooners versus Cancer. We're the only ones that have it. We created it. We had it done from the people who were part of it. And it's something that we're having 500 entries, which each entry is a $25 donation, which is about 18 pounds to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society on goonersvcancer.com. And if you haven't seen this already, here's a little bit about this amazing piece.
Good ball by Gibson, finding Smith. The top, charging to the midfield. Thomas! It's up for grabs now! Thomas! Right at the end!
Oh, sorry. If you win, you also get a copy of that music, which I think is even more valuable. But yeah, I mean, as someone who lived through that day, not in person, unfortunately, but I mean, that's the greatest moment of my sporting life. And the 4 people who made it happen, all collaborating to sign and write on a shirt like that, I think is pretty special. So go to goonersvcancer.com and you can enter to win it. So Jack, you watched the Norwich game on your phone.
Yeah.
So like happy, ecstatic, and then like the bottom falls out. Is that pretty much how your day was on Saturday?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't be more happy with a 5-0 win, but I mean, yes, I was
Did you get to watch the whole game? Like it was over by the time you got on, or
yes.
What was the?
Yep. Yeah, it was done.
Cool. So who would you say was your man of the match in that game? Who? I mean, we talked about it on the open mic show on Saturday, an hour after the game, and there were 4 or 5 different people who got votes. So for you, who put in the best shift?
I think I'd go with Odegaard. I think he's playing really strong right now. I think he's moving the ball extremely well, like he should be, and everyone knew he would be. So it's really great to see. So I'm going to go with Odegaard. Perfect.
Kaya, now you're looking at it from a different perspective. You're in the press box in Carrow Road. How's the press box in Carrow Road? I know where it is in Emirates, obviously just to the right of block 32. Is it a nice view? Is it good? I mean, obviously all these older stadiums have some strange placement of gantries and press boxes, but
yeah, it was a great view. It was right up at the top. So because it's not like 3-tiered like the Emirates, it's just the 1 tier. So when you're right at the top, you get a good sort of tactical view of the whole game and sort of the positions of the players, and you could see just about the touchline, and it was pouring with rain, and we were nice and protected from that. So yeah, it was a really, really good press box. Nice food as well, hot food, which you don't always get at press boxes around England. So yeah, it was a really, really nice game.
Nice. Can we text each other about the food? Because I'm really interested. I mean,
yeah, sure.
That game in LA, the brisket was unbelievable. But in Denver, at the home of the Cronkies, it was like sausages and stale, So yeah, nice to know that Norwich is spending their money on something.
Yeah.
So you're man of the match, and any comments about the game? Any nuggets from the press conference? That, I mean, obviously you put it out there for all of us who aren't able to take part of it, and oftentimes we read your comments and those from Chris as well, depending on who's pushing it out while we're on our post game podcast. So thank you for doing that to help us enrich our content. But what'd you take away from that game as far as the spirit and the alignment of this club behind their manager?
Yeah, no worries. Happy to help with the press conference side of things. And I think it's hard to disagree with what Jack said. I think Ødegaard was probably my man of the match. I gave him, Martinelli and Saka all 9 out of 10 because I couldn't pick. But if I had to pick, it would probably have been Ødegaard, because I think without him in that number 10 position where he's knitting things together and just linking that midfield and the attack, I don't think that front three perform as well as they do. And obviously, the view we had was of Martinelli as well, who had a fantastic game on the left side in the first half. He was immense in terms of how he plays 100 mile an hour. Like, if you consider he'd played 4 days before against Sunderland, obviously coming off the bench, but he'd been whacked about a bit in that Sunderland game. And he'd come into Norwich and was absolutely fantastic and just doesn't stop running. And obviously is adding the finishing element, which he's always had, but he's doing it on a consistent basis. So that's really exciting. And then Emile Smith-Rowe coming off the bench. I mean, if you look across the Premier League, so many teams are struggling right now due to COVID, injuries, squad depth. Arsenal aren't. They're very lucky in the sense that front line is ridiculously strong right now. A £72 million player, Nicola Pepe, can't even get anywhere near it. And that's a sign. And listen, I'm sure you guys have discussed Aubameyang to death, so I won't go into it too much. But the fact that his absence isn't really being too keenly felt is just a sign of how well the attack has started working. I'm a big fan of Alexandre Lacazette in that centre-forward role, just dropping a little bit deeper so that the wide forwards can take up the space. And I think it's working really nicely. And I'm interested to see how it goes against City, because in every single one of these good performances from Arsenal, there's been sort of a caveat. So against Leeds, it was, well, Leeds have been decimated by injury. Against Sunderland, it was, well, Sunderland are League One. Against Norwich, it was, well, Norwich and Norwich. Man City is a different story. And if Arsenal can play the way they've been playing against a team as good as Man City on New Year's Day, I'm really excited.
Well, it's New Year's Day. That'll be
that's the thing. Yeah, insert your own hanging joke here. That's the
hungover.
Norwich actually petitioned the FA to change their name to "It's Only Norwich FC." Norwich City FC. But I have one quick question for Kaya that you mentioned, and then Mikey, if you want to spread out the questions that you've starred for the two lads, and then we'll cut it off. But what I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned Martinelli going 100%. Martinelli is, I mean, a lot of people would like to praise Martinelli while also taking a swipe at, well, he should have been starting sooner. He's clearly shown that. Now, what I've seen from Martinelli between last season and this season is an equal amount of effort, but a much sharper focus and actual strategy. Last year he was literally running around the pitch like a chicken with his head cut off, and you loved the passion, you loved the energy, you loved the drive and the work rate, but maybe it wasn't necessarily to an end constantly, to a team unified outcome. Whereas this season, I couldn't stop talking on Saturday about how in the 80th minute, right before he got subbed out, he's on a full sprint, essentially covering Tierney's left back position, and forcing a critical turnover when the game was pretty much over, and yet he was still just putting in that kind of a shift, tracking back and doing all the things that he needed to. And it is the delay in getting him out there, kind of the holding him back a little bit and not just setting him loose on the league. Is that a strategic thing that you think has actually paid dividends, or am I looking too far into it?
No, I think you're spot on. I think if it weren't for the COVID and the injuries that Arsenal had at the start of the season, Gabriel Martinelli wouldn't have been involved in those first couple of games against Brentford and Chelsea, where he took so much stick for not playing as well as we know he can do. And the most exciting thing about Martinelli is obviously the passion, and that he's now playing smart as well as playing well, if that makes sense. So he's doing things that are clever, and he's not doing everything at 100 mile an hour. He's doing what he needs to do at 100 mile an hour to have the most impact on the game. He's playing with his head up a lot more. A thing I noticed in his game before was he would dribble and he'd have his head down, and now he looks up, and it's so much more important. And he looks ready now. And I think a big thing about Arteta and what he's always said about Martinelli was he needs to be ready. The timing needs to be right, and that's what we've heard from people inside the club. That they wanted to make sure it was just right for Martinelli, because he was out for a long time with an injury. And I think people forget that 6 months is a long time. And because of COVID and Project Restart and the way it was, we sort of forgot about it. But that was a big injury at such a young age, and it takes time to get back into your rhythm. And I think when he first came back, he was so desperate to make up for lost time that he was almost trying to score an assist every time he got the ball. It didn't matter whether he was in front of the goal or
defending a corner.
Yeah, exactly. He was just doing everything to try and get his name on the team sheet. Whereas now he's calmed down a little bit more. He's got a little bit more confidence that he's going to be in the team involved. And I think that makes a huge difference for him, because he seems to be playing, like I said, a lot more smart. And that means that Arsenal have an even better player than I think we all thought on our hands, because his talent is immense and his potential is, unknowable at this point in time. But it could go stratospheric if he's able to keep up what we're seeing now. I think Arteta deserves so much credit for just sort of not bowing to the pressure, because a lot of managers might have thrown him in, but it's been very important just to make sure it was right. And I think that's been key for seeing the Gabriel Martinelli we've seen over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, and in youth football, my son has just pretty much completed an arc through your youth football. He's 18 now. There are players like him who very early on had all kinds of skill, but just didn't really have the work rate and the ferocity. And as you get older, those guys start getting picked off by the people who do. Then you had the kids who were just all work rate. They just ran around like bulldozers, but you could tell that if they were ever one-on-one, they couldn't beat a man. They couldn't do anything like that. And then you had the players who were around 13, 14 years old started putting the two together. And those were the superstars. Those are the guys who are now playing in university or doing trials in Spain or Portugal at lower level teams and stuff from over here. So, I look at Martinelli as just a very advanced version of that, even though he's older and he's a much more complete footballer. I think we're getting more out of him now because of the investment in learning that he got. And, that might be hindsight and finding a way of making Arteta right in hindsight, but I don't see how you could call him wrong in hindsight either. So couple of user questions for Jack and Kaya. Mikey?
Yes, coming in.
Hey, before, can I actually, I'm sorry, can I ask Kaya a question real quick?
Oh, yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Kaya, promise me that game goes on Saturday. Any word of COVID or anything. Go. I mean, I know you can't promise, but anything
Imagine,
have you heard
dude?
about?
Nah.
Hey, City's got all COVID coming here.
Listen, we've not heard anything COVID-wise from either club. I don't want to jinx it, because I feel like
I know
you've been through enough. I don't want to get your hopes on and then see them smash down. Maybe you'll have to stay in London for the Liverpool game after that. I don't know, but yeah.
Jack, if that game gets canceled, I'm coming over in April, and we're gonna go together to the game in April. I promise you that.
I take you up on that, Mike.
I mean, I can't pay.
You're gonna DM Kaya tomorrow. Kaya told me.
That's why I asked that question earlier. I just wanted to make sure that I was giving you the same package that Granit Xhaka was giving you. But trust me, if that game doesn't happen, I'm going to be sick to my stomach. But that's a great question. Do we have a question for Jack?
Yeah, I got you. Just real quick, Mikey, and this is just for a good friend Owen that's not on the pod. I just want to say that Gabriel Martinelli is like a dirt bike that I bought when I was younger in Guatemala, and he just needed a few. You know where I'm going with this? Just needed a few extra gears. Okay.
What?
Clip needed a few extra gears.
Oh, God.
We'll clip that and send it to Owen. I promise you, getting he'll laugh his ass off. All right, back to the regularly scheduled program.
We're doing podcast bits for single individual people.
Yes, absolutely. I had to get that. I've been waiting for weeks to do that. So, Jack, here's the first question of the man, the myth, the legend that is Danny, the GFP, my podcasting podfather. Question: fourth, yes or no? Third, yes or no? So, with the way the league has been progressing and the team has been playing as of late, what do you think our chances are of succeeding in a top 4 race?
I think 4 is pretty dead on. I always thought 4 was pretty dead on going into the season, to be honest. I didn't see us too far off of the other games. I know it slipped a little bit. But I think 4 100%. Third, maybe we could catch Chelsea. I don't know.
Liverpool dropped a couple points today.
Liverpool dropped some points. Chelsea beat Aston with the great Martinez, of course. So
yeah, well,
who is factually better than Leno? Now that we
very soon we will not be looking back over our shoulders at the games in hand. But Kaya, do you think? Where were you asked to put a kind of a place on where you thought Arsenal would finish prior to the season? I mean, I'm sure any journalist or podcaster would have had that show or that article where they're like, top 4, bottom 3, Arsenal will finish. What were you? Do you recall what your thoughts were?
Several different platforms. 5th is where I had.
You give different answers on all of them.
Yeah, 5th, 6th, 4th, 1st.
Cover all bases.
Exactly. If I do 20 different shows, then I would have been fine.
You've got to diversify. I'm in financial services.
Exactly. But no, I had Arsenal in 5th just because I foolishly thought Man United were going to be a lot better than they were. I didn't factor in how disappointing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was going to be as a manager this season and how much the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo would completely seemingly sort of just ruin them as a team. And obviously, a fantastic attacking player, but as a team, they seem to have fallen apart. And I think that's created a gap that Arsenal have been able to get into fantastically. And look, people say that Arsenal haven't beaten any big teams; they've only beaten little teams, but that's not easy to do. And Spurs dropped points against Southampton today. Arsenal, that's a game they won. So you have to do it. And I think Arsenal need a lot of credit. And in the old days, when Arsenal would make top 4 every season, they would lose quite handily under Arsene Wenger to the big teams, but they would beat all the smaller teams and they would get that final spot. And I think that's Arsenal's best bet this season. It's not going to be easy because Spurs under Conte look much better. Even though they dropped points today, they look a much better team. Man United under Ranić, still, we don't really know, but you can't fully rule them out just because of the quality they've got. And then West Ham won today and are a team who are really effective under David Moyes. So it's not going to be easy, but I think 4th, definitely on. 3rd, a little bit too far off Chelsea. And I think when they get their injured players back, they'll be much better again. But 4th, definitely possible. And I think Arsenal probably just about favourites for it at the minute.
I would say so, if you're listening to the television pundits, no. But yeah, you'd be disappointed now if we don't go back to the Champions League next year, and that's a feeling I never would have thought that we'd have this year. Speaking of, and I told you this before the show, this is my evidence right here. Super Kevin Campbell says, "Hey, Magic Mike,
Super Kev.
I hope all is well. Do you think the Arsenal have a plan for January recruiting players? God bless you all. God bless you, Kevin. You are a man amongst men. Happy birthday to your son, Tyrese, by the way. Great to see him back banging in goals for Stoke. Nice to have a reason to actually enjoy watching Stoke. I'm gonna push that on you, Kaya, because you might have a little bit more insight than I do about the plan for January's recruitment, and maybe shed some light on this Mainsley to this Maitland-Niles. Ask Tom Sunday about Mainsley, by the way. But
so, just for reference as well, that goes hand in hand with Bulgarian Gooner. Kaya, putting your ITK status into question. Any insight on potential targets for January? So it ties in quite well.
Did you have anything you'd like to say to the gerbil while you're at it?
I wouldn't want to step on the gerbil's toes, but yeah, there's a plan. I think it depends a lot on what happens, though. So Edu and Arteta and the hierarchy have all had meetings about what they want to do in January, but it's dependent on sort of who leaves first and what happens with the players we don't really know about fully at the minute. So someone like an Ainsley Maitland-Niles he's attracting interest from Roma, and they're interested in getting him. And I don't know whether that's the smartest move for Arsenal right now, just because of the numbers it would leave them short of in midfield going into January. But that's something that could happen. Plenty of players like that who we don't quite know what's going to happen. So Sead Kolasinac attracting interest from Watford, I think. We don't know what's going to happen with Aubameyang. We don't know what's going to happen with someone like Flo Balogun. Is he going to go on loan? So they've got plans and they've got contingency plans in place, and I'm sure they'll have their list of targets who they want to go for if they feel it's needed. But at the minute, I don't think there's a concrete plan to bring anyone in unless things change dramatically. But listen, things can change throughout January, and I'd keep an eye on the midfield position right now, just because if Ainsley does end up leaving, then they might look to bring someone else in if they don't trust that Patino's ready to make the step up. So yeah, that's the one I'd say is probably where they're looking at the most. But definitely plans have been made, and it's sort of a see what happens, and then they'll be able to react accordingly, but not sort of caught off guard because they seem to know what's coming, as we saw in the summer.
Right. Well, it's an open summer, or an open January. I don't personally think we're going to do much business at all in January, but it seems to be the rule of thumb. Mike, do we have another question?
Yeah, I'm holding my breath for a look at Delhi still. Eventually he'll arrive. At the age of 35, he'll be here. Jack, here's a question for you. Is Ramsdale the clear first half the clear first half player of the year so far? So we've first half of the season had passed by. Out of all the new signings that we've had, you think Ramsdale would take the cake?
Or out of everybody on the team?
I think he changed the team. He changed the season as of right now. So yeah, 100%.
Like that. That's earned. Yeah, that's we've had the discussion on a different podcast as far as the standout star of the season, and I'm here to say I'm really happy to say that you could make an argument for multiple players in my eyes. So, but yeah, Ramsdale is fresh breath air. The way he came into the club with all the backlash that he got, that the club got, and the fact that he came to be and play the way he's playing right now is just absolutely amazing. Follow-up question for you, Kaya. What do you think of the possibility of the Magic Black Boots, a.k.a. Emil Smith-Rowe, playing as false 9? What do you...
No, I don't think it would work, just because I think he's tried it before, Arteta. Remember that Villarreal semi-final where it all went horribly wrong in Villarreal, and I don't think he's quite got the physicality to do the hold-up play. And for me, Smith-Rowe is at his best when he's bringing the ball forward by dribbling, and if you play him at the highest position in the pitch, then you can't really dribble the ball forward. So I really like him in the left wing role. I think that's where he's at his best. I think he is able to sort of play in those half spaces, combined with the fullback, combined with the attack midfielder, combined with the striker as well. And yeah, for me, that's where he's at his most dangerous. Centre forward, even though he is taking a lot of chances, he seems to be getting them from a little bit deeper. And I just don't quite think it would work for Arsenal right now as him as a false 9.
Yeah. I have a question from the football journal for Kaya. Did your interest in football journalism truly take form when when Jerby burst onto the scene with his transcendent 2 weeks of fame?
You have no shame, Mike.
Do you remember the episode of the football journal?
Of course, I remember. Yeah, it was the Sanyehi news that he broke, if I'm not mistaken.
Very famous, very handsome.
Yeah, he's a good-looking gerbil. It's the best-looking gerbil I've ever seen.
He's the best-looking gerbil I know. But, I mean, is that where it came from, or were you already kind of on that track for?
I'd say I was on the track, but that definitely put me on the right path in terms of going to where I am now. It's definitely an inspiration. Each time I write an article, it's what would Gerbil say for this? So, yeah.
Well, I'll pass that along to him. We have a kind of a back channel communication with each other. So, any other questions? Are we good? Do we stand any chance against City? Let's ask Jack that.
Jack.
We'll finish off with Jack giving his prediction. With you there, we can't lose, right?
We got it. It's in the bag.
Love that.
We're at home. We're great at home.
I actually fancy a result in this game. I don't want to say it because every time I pick us to win, we don't. But I mean, Kaya, is there
fancy my sanity, so I'll just sit back and see how the game plays out.
Oh, I'll still predict a 2-2 draw, as I do in every single game when I actually think that we have a chance. I still go 2-2. But Kaya, I mean, when people say Bakaya, do you think they're talking about Bukayo Saka?
Yeah, sometimes.
I saw someone in the chat call you Kayak earlier, and I was not.
Yeah, a lot of people think my name's Kaya Kaynak, which is quite fun, rather than Kaya Kaynak. But yeah,
it was bang out of order. You are not a travel website. All right, all right. So enough gerbil talk. All right, so let's finish it off. Do we have a chance against City? How do you think that Arteta is going to approach the game? Does he make any changes to what's been working against the lower clubs? Do you think he overthinks it? Do you think he tries to change the formation? Does he try to outwit his mentor? What are we going to see on Saturday morning, other than a football game that occurs?
Yeah. Well, I should add the caveat. If it goes ahead, I think
we're not going to get roped into confirming anything. Smart. I like that.
I'm not falling down that rabbit hole. I think so. My worry is that maybe just because Arsenal are at home and in front of their own fans, that they might Arteta up against his old sort of like mentor Pep Guardiola. He's always seemed to want to pull something over him and try and get the better of him. So remember that game last season where he played Willian as a false nine, with Aubameyang on the wing. And this season, when Arsenal went into a big game against Man United, they played El Neni in midfield out of nowhere, and Arteta does have it in him to do that in big games. So that would be my fear, that something similar could happen, but I don't think it will. I think things have been going so well in recent weeks, and with the rest that people have been able to get without the Wolves game going ahead, I think that just means that it would be probably strange for him to not change the starting 11. I'm not 100% sure what Tomiyasu's COVID sort of status is. I don't know whether he's vaccinated or not, so that could affect whether he's available for Man City. But assuming he's not, I'm kind of fine with Ben White playing right back and Rob Holding in the middle, so I think that could work well. And then beyond that, I don't think Arsenal will make too many changes, and I think it's a good test against the Man City side, who pressed really hard. Arsenal have been obviously playing out from the back really nicely in previous weeks. So I don't know. I don't want to predict a win because I think every time, like you guys, every time I predict a win, I seem to end up disappointed. And I got really excited about the Liverpool game, and I thought Arsenal could go there and get a result. And then obviously that did not end up happening. So I'll go for a draw as well. I think a draw would be a fantastic result. If Arsenal can get it, 1-1 would be amazing because 2-2's already been taken. So 1-1 I'll go for.
Beautiful. All right. Well, Jack, we're going to round up. Jack, I hope you and your wife have a very happy anniversary. When is the anniversary date? Is it today?
It was actually the 17th.
Oh, okay. So today would have been the game.
Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary. We're coming up on our 25th this year, and I'm talking about me and Mike, not my wife and I. But congratulations on your trip, on your interactions with both Chris and Granit. Had any good food since you've been over? Like, whereabouts you eating? Do you need any recommendations on lamb ribs or anything like that?
No, actually, I'm being honest. We've been pretty disappointed with both restaurants we went to. I couldn't even tell you the name of either of them.
Go to wait. I saw you were already up in North London today. It looked like you were prancing around the Emirates and the taking pictures with all the statues and stuff. If you make it back up there on a non-game day, I can't recommend this place enough. I don't know, Kaya, if you've ever been there, but Yildiz. I know you are of Turkish descent, so I'm not going to act like I'm the expert in Turkish food or lamb ribs or anything. But Yildiz on Blackstock Road, a couple doors down from the Arsenal Tavern. The lamb ribs are amazing. I went there maybe 9 times, and I tried to go there another 6 times, and they were closed while I was in London a couple months ago. So go there. Tell them Mike sent you. They'll say in Turkish, "Who the fuck is Mike?" And then they'll give you amazing lamb ribs.
Deal. I'll take it. I'm going up on Thursday again. So yeah.
Any places you recommend, Kaya? I mean, given that.
If you're looking for Turkish food, on Holloway Road, there's a nice place called Gallipoli, and then they sort of have another one which is called Gallipoli again. It's the same restaurant, which is like a little, not a chain, but it's just like 2 restaurants, and
it's original.
That's really good food. I definitely recommend that. It's near Highbury Islington Station, and yeah, if you're looking for Turkish food, you can't go too far wrong with that.
Well, maybe when we come back in April, if you haven't gotten sick of me by then, maybe we'll go out for some Turkish together. And And we'll go to there's two pubs you got to go to. There's the Tollington and then the Tollington again. It's just down the street. It's really, really good. So anyway, that's enough for tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate you staying up late with us. Jack, hope you have a great experience. Be rooting for you. I want to watch a game on Saturday morning, but more than anything else, I want you to be able to watch it. And it'll just complete the arc on the story when we come back with a win. So it's great to meet you and have a chance to chat about your experience. Kaya, we'll do this again, hopefully sometime soon. Please give Tom a hard time. Tell him you need to be invited to the wedding. It's not nice that I'm invited and you're not. You guys are colleagues. But Mikey, will you be doing the Gooners podcast again tomorrow?
Yeah, the Gooners podcast again.
All right.
For the open mic, no, probably not. I won't be on for the first, but
yeah, no,
I'm
not sure
like you said. Yeah, no, I'll be back eventually. I make no promises nowadays. Everything hinders on a 3-month-old. To be completely honest with you, so I'm gonna see how that plays out. And anytime I am available, I sure do miss this place. So yeah, absolutely, would love to be back.
All right, love you, mate. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Happy